You're listening to the LDS Sexologist, a podcast devoted to tackling the taboo and finding the connection between spirituality and sexuality. To submit your anonymous questions, click the link in my Instagram bio. Hello everyone and welcome back to the LDS Sexologist. Today I am answering the question that a lot of people ask me, and I'm going to attempt to make it succinct and easy to understand. The question is, what do you do for work? What is a sex educator? And I'm also attaching to that how it differs from being a sex therapist, because a lot of times people just think or assume that I'm a sex therapist when I say sex educator, but those are two different, very closely related positions and jobs and careers, but they are different. So let me explain what it is that I do so that you can get a better understanding of not only what my services are and like how I can help people, but just sexology as a whole, as an entire unit, as a multidisciplinary field, what this means. Okay, let's start off with the field of sexology, and then we'll get into my career as a sex educator. So the field of sexology, I have an entire video all about this, so for anyone that's like genuinely interested in this field, go check out my Patreon. But a brief summary is going to be, there's 4 different main parts to the study of human sexuality. So you have the biology side, psychology, sociology, and education. And then there is going to be this honorable mention bonus, which is going to be forensics. So going through biology careers that can include, but is not limited to, a gynecologist, a urologist, an andrologist, which for anyone that doesn't know, a urologist focuses mostly on urinary tract and reproductive health systems, including erectile dysfunction and incontinence, meaning the inability to pee, or you're not able to stop your pee is actually a better way to say that. So for men that have had their prostates removed, they now suffer with incontinence, so they are not able to control their bowels. So they would go and see a urologist. Or you have an andrologist, which they specialize in male reproductive health and fertility. You also have endocrinologists managing hormone imbalances that will affect sexual functioning, pelvic floor therapists. I work a lot with them for any women that have pain during sex or penetration, or men can also have issues as well. So pelvic floor therapy, sexual health nurses, women's health nurses. This is all going to fall under the biology side of sexology. So you have people that specialize in specifically how our body functions in relation to sex, or your sex hormones, or your puberty. Those are all gonna fall under that umbrella. Then of course you have the psychology side. I would say this is the one most people are familiar with, which is going to be a sex therapist or relationship couples counselor, sexocorporal therapist, which I had an entire episode about the study of sexocorporal and what that is with a sexocorporal therapist. So please go check out that episode with Carmen. It's a really cool episode. So psychology is going to be looking at how we think about things, how we relate, and any sort of sexual trauma, processing that. That's going to be psychology. Sociology careers, this can include intimacy coordinators, which if you're on Instagram, if you're into film or movies, they're really having their moment of how they help actors communicate and with directors to coordinate intimate scenes to make sure that no one's actually touching each other, but messing with the camera angles to create a moment and to further along the story that they're trying to tell. What are they trying to get at, and helping with consent, who feels comfortable doing what. That's going to be falling under this sociology career. Then you also have public activists, media researchers, journalists, a lot of LGBTQIA plus program facilitators, queer theory. They're going to be looking at how the world, how the community looks at sexuality and how that affects marketing. For instance, if you go to a deodorant aisle, you're going to see very drastic different marketing when it comes to male deodorant versus female deodorant. When it comes to the names of the products, the color of the product, the font that's used, the way that it's marketed, all of that has to do with them catering to these gender norms and what we say masculinity is and what we say femininity is, and the different types of commercials that you're gonna see. Is Carl's Jr. really selling burgers? Okay, well, you wouldn't really know that based on their commercials. They're selling burgers to men, sure, because they have these models that are eating burgers where the sauce is dripping down onto their breasts. And back in the day, they actually had this entire scandal because their commercial was like pretty pornographic. And they sit back and they say, oh, well, we're just selling burgers. No, come on now. This is what some people study, is like, why is it that they are using women's sexuality to sell burgers? Why? Why do they do that? Well, because blah, 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 blah. Like, this is how we, work in society, and beauty products and face creams, and like all of it comes back to our sexuality of, we have this idea of what beauty is, the beauty standard, which has been set, and it's primarily to be younger, right? And it's to be thinner, and to be honest, it's really the beauty standard set by pedophiles, which is unfortunate that we are just like grasping onto that and being like, yes, this is what it takes to be pretty. Okay, well, being malnourished, unable to fight back, and being a young child, that has like an adolescent looking face, that's not beauty. That's not healthy. That's a fetish that someone else has that you're now conforming to. Okay, so this kind of idea, or even that argument that I just made, would very much be on the sociology side of things, of like arguing that that's true, that it is this beauty standard that's set by pedophiles. Like, that could be in a journal, and some journalist would write some op-ed essay about that, and that's going to be the sociology side. Now, before we jump to the education side, which is the final one, I'm actually going to skip that one really quick and then instead talk really quick about forensics. So forensic careers, that's going to be like criminal profilers, expert witnesses, sex offender treatment specialists, social workers, but these are specifically people who work with either perpetrators of sexual crimes or victims of sexual crimes. And then you also have the legal side of it as well. The not only activists but lawyers, that they are looking at the crime itself, because you kind of have two sides. You have the criminology side, which is caring about the motive, like what led someone to commit this act, and then also what does that mean for the victim survivor, like the impact that this particular crime has on their life and their psychology, the trauma that this can create, and why it is more trauma than any other type of crime. So they look at the psychology behind both of those things. That's going to be the criminology side, but then you also have the crime, the law itself, like criminal law. And that does not care about motive, that doesn't care really about impact on the victim survivor. Like, this cares about what does the law say about this particular crime. And a lot of times the crime and the laws itself, they can be changed, and they should be changed the more that we understand about the impact on the victim survivors, the more that we understand treatment for perpetrators. Like, things need to change. And right now, how the system is set up, it is primarily set up to protect the perpetrator instead of the victim survivor. The amount of re-traumatization that occurs for the victim survivor, the amount that they're questioned, the lack of care that's taken with them, and like the amount of proof that they have to have that this happened to them is it's just really difficult to prove in a lot of different cases. And even if you do have evidence, even in cases where you do, it's so incredibly difficult to actually get any sort of real justice. And that is devastating. And that's so hard because we understand from the criminology side the impact that these types of crimes have on the victims. It is horrible. It is life-altering. And it sucks that the system is just set up to protect the perpetrator rather than the victim survivor, especially when you look at stats of, yes, there are false allegations, but that is so much rarer than someone telling the truth or just not reporting because they're afraid they're not going to be believed, because the stats on not being believed or the stats on you could even be believed but like not having justice are so much greater. Like out of all the cases, I just barely did a paper on this last semester. In Western Australia, there was, out of 500,000 cases, only 1.8% actually go to court and, someone goes to prison. And even then, out of that 1.8%, it has more than half of the victims still were upset by the outcome because they didn't get as many years as they felt that they should have to actually get justice. So there, you kind of have to redefine what justice is. And so that is where social workers can come in that advocate for victim survivors, and they can really help the victim survivors gain a new definition of what justice would feel like for them, because justice of seeing that person behind bars is so low on the probability scale. You would have to go through so much in order to even try to make that happen because of how the system is set up, that they really look at what are other ways in which we can help you rebuild your life and help you feel okay again, which that's so hard. And that's why those types of careers are so important. There's laws changing all the time. Just this last year in England, they changed the laws around non-fatal strangulation, or what a lot of people refer to as choking. That has been seen as oh, well, it's just a kink. Okay, well, it's killing women. And also, that's a tough one, because then you're saying, oh, well, she was into it. I didn't realize it was an accident. She just likes being choked, and then, now she's dead. Okay, well, that one's a little tough, because you could just have killed her, and then now you're just saying, oh, but it was a kink she was into. So anyways, that's been a debate for a really long time, because we see it more and more coming up in pornography. 97% of pornography promotes violence against women and depicts that. So it really warps what a normal sexual interaction would be. And instead, pornography itself plays on the novelty of, and a lot of times the novelty comes from endangerment of women and violence and aggression. So unfortunately, that has then created these habits where you now have these stats that show that over 60% of women in their first year of college experience being choked during a sexual interaction, a sexually intimate moment. And the majority do not enjoy that. So anyways, I'll spend an entire episode probably talking about non-fatal strangulation in particular, because that one's a really interesting one, and the laws behind it, and then also looking at it from who is this happening to, what to do if this does happen to you, how to speak up and advocate for yourself. And that's a tough one for a lot of women, because all of a sudden it's whoa, what is happening? And then it's oh, well, it's just something he's into, and I guess I can go along with it, but it's actually really, really, really easy to kill someone that way. And, it is believable that some of these, early-aged college kids, that they are accidentally harming severely or even murdering their partner in an attempt to, be like porn and to just have this kink. So anyways, all of this, is this not fascinating? All of this falls under the like forensic careers. This is what they are there for, and they are specifically looking at sexual crimes and working with either the perpetrators on understanding like where they got to like the crime itself, if they have been convicted, or like helping them with their recovery, the victim survivor side, advocacy, the law. There's all sorts of different careers that you can go to in this. I find it extremely fascinating. I'm telling you right now, you will not catch me in a forensics career like as a career because that stuff's way too heavy for me. I find it so fascinating to like talk about, but no, that's not for me. That is for some strong individuals, because that's a tough one and it has a lot of burnout, especially those that work with perpetrators. That has a really big turnaround, and a lot of burnout and a lot of like changeover, because it's very difficult to do that kind of job. And now we have sex educators. That's me. And I think I've done a pretty good job so far, really just showing you instead of telling you what I do. I tell you about all of these different sides of sexology, about human sexuality, about how we think about it, about how it affects our every single day lives, about how it affects our body, our connection with other people. There are so many different ways in which this affects us, and a lot of people either don't recognize it or it's just all happening so subconsciously. But our sexuality is something that we all have. We are all born with it. And people who are making money off of it, they are very aware of our sexuality, very much. They use it to sell things, they use it to sell ideas about yourself. And if you are just this passive person to it, or you aren't recognizing the impact that your own sexuality has, then you can be very susceptible to all of the messaging that you're going to receive. And there's different messaging that they give to men versus women. Right now, the manosphere messaging, if you don't know what that is, I'm going to do an entire episode on it. Don't worry, I will educate you on all of this. But the messaging there is that really you are entitled to women and their bodies, and that they are yours, and you can just take what you want, and women they shouldn't have rights. It really is like the main messaging. Horrible, terrible. You would think that this has gone away a long time ago. Oh, no. No. If you want like a really good intro to that, I do recommend watching the documentary by Louis Theroux. Yes, he's really funny, very dry British humor, but it's called Inside the Manosphere. And that I thought was like a really great introduction for anyone that's like, what is this? That one's fantastic. Another incredible one that I would recommend to every single person is a show called Adolescence. It's 4 episodes. It's on Netflix. It won countless awards, like an astronomical amount of awards. And England is actually looking at making it a requirement for all of their high school students to watch this series. It's 4 parts, 4 hours, so 1 hour each. The filming of it alone it won a ton of awards because each episode is taken as one shot. So I watched like a whole little docu thing about how it was made. Unbelievable. It is so freaking cool. So there's no cuts. So for example, when they're driving in the car, you have the camera in the car, and then they get out of the car and the camera switches to a camera that's being like handheld, and they like overlap each other so that there's no cuts. So it's just one continuous scene over and over again. And then at one point it switches from like the regular handheld camera, and then it goes behind a camera on a drone, and then that camera goes up so they can get a different shot. But they rehearsed, kind of like a stage play, they rehearsed this for weeks, weeks and weeks and weeks for each episode, and then they would do it in one take. So it'd be an hour-long take. You guys, this series is unreal. It's so good. But for anybody that doesn't know or hasn't heard of it, Adolescence is about a 13-year-old boy in England, and he ends up killing his classmate. He murders her, and it is shocking, but also it's so well told because the first episode is the police going in and arresting him. And you have the shock of the family and everyone's confused in that entire process. And you're like, there's no way that this kid has done something. This is a 13-year-old, this child. He looks very sweet and innocent, and he's saying he didn't do anything. And so at the end of the first episode, you find out he does kill his classmate. And then you have all of these questions because you're like, wait, this is just an innocent kid. How? How did he do this? Why? So then the second episode is the investigators going to the school and starting to understand a little bit more about the social dynamics that are going on at that school. The third episode, oh my gosh, chills. The third episode is him meeting with a child psychologist. That one's insane. That one's so good. That one won tons of awards. And then the fourth episode is about his parents and his sister and the impact that this all had on them in this town. Oh my goodness. It is so powerful. It's not graphic at all. So if you're worried about that, it's not scary in any way. Instead, the entire series is seeking for you to understand, how could this happen? How could a sweet, innocent child do this? How could he commit such a heinous crime against his classmate? How? And that is such a powerful question that we should be asking, because this is happening all the time. This is happening everywhere, and it's happening younger and younger. And it is a lot of violence against women that's being promoted by the manosphere. So it touches on that, it goes into that, and that's why they want to show it in schools, because it has a really big impact. Once you watch this series, it is life-changing, honestly. I feel that it was. I've seen it now 3 times, and I've watched it with multiple people because obviously I've converted them all. And every single time I've watched it with people, they're like, wow, that was crazy. I've never thought about the world in that way, and how easy it is for just this 13-year-old that comes home from school and goes on his computer, and you think that he's playing games, but he's actually in these chat rooms that are teaching him about entitlement and about there's all sorts of things. I could go really into it, but that are teaching him that this kind of behavior is the only way to get what he wants. And that's not okay, and that's not good. And then, so that's going to be the male side. The female side, the narrative that we get is that we're just not enough, right? But if you buy this product, if you wear this makeup, if you use your sexuality as a currency, that is the only way in which you will gain power in the world. You have to use this, and you can't have this be something that you own. It must be owned by others, and it is by displaying that, and it is by using it and manipulating. That's the only way in which you'll get a leg up in the world, and you are just constantly not enough. And then if you are bold and outspoken, well, then you get labeled all these other things. And what it means to be a woman, we have a lot of criteria on that, and the trad wife trend, but how that's actually, go and listen to my episode about abuse with Dr. Sim. Please go listen to that. We do have a brief section about trad wives and how that is actually, oh my gosh, it's just a really, really easy way for men who are abusers to entrap these women. And she explains it so well, because I'm not saying that being a stay-at-home mom, all of a sudden you're being abused. No. That's not what I am saying. Okay, go listen to that episode where we talk specifically about the narrative of a trad wife and how that is being used to entrap women so that they do not have their own finances, they do not have an education, they don't have friends, and they are not allowed to make any decisions for the home. That's a really easy way for the man to get all of the power, and then they are able to really take it from there. So please go listen to that episode. But all of this, like understanding how this works, understanding that this is not something that's going on to other people. Like this is going on all the time, everywhere, to people you know. It's 1 in 4 women that are victims of sexual violence. And in Utah, it's 1 in 3. Okay, so if you know 3 women, one of them, statistically, is going to be a victim of sexual violence. Or maybe it's you. And then it's 1 in 10 men, and depending on the stats that you're looking at, it depends. It depends on the stats. But for queer men, it's going to be around like anywhere from 1 in 8 to 1 in 10. And then for straight men, it's usually around 1 in 16. But still, that is so prevalent. It is happening. And that's just the violent side, which I tend to go towards because people need to understand that this is occurring. You cannot be blind to this, especially like good men. I'm always on this rant that it's not enough to just be a good man. You need to be a good man that stands up to bad men, because they are hurting not only men but women, and we do not have enough power to really stand up for ourselves and for other women. Like, we are in way more danger anytime that we speak up than if a man speaks up. So we need to come together to solve this problem. But you're never going to do that if you don't understand that there is a problem that's going on. If you just believe that it's not happening in your neighborhood or not happening to people you know, or you've never heard of it, so it doesn't really matter, like, it absolutely does. It absolutely matters. It matters for the safety of your children. It matters for your own safety. It matters for the world that we can build and the interactions that we can have with each other, the human rights that we have. All of that is very heavily dictated by our sexuality. That has been the commodity in which decisions have been made and like measured for centuries. But, a lot of people don't realize how much it's connected to our sexuality. But once you start seeing it, because an educator like me comes along and helps you understand, from something of marketing to the body image issues, and then how that plays into sexual dysfunction, and where do we get these body image issues, like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like, this is what I do, is I help you understand. And then the more that you understand, the more that you can make conscious choices and use your agency to make decisions around how you're going to not only interact with your own sexuality and embrace that and use it, but also others as well, that you're going to be less manipulative towards others, consciously or unconsciously, that you are not going to use this as a currency to get things from others or to somehow get power for yourself, that instead you can be a more honest person that's full of integrity and confidence in your own sexuality, and you don't need that validation from other people. So that's one part of what I do. And I really enjoy it, and I love explaining it to people, and I could go on and on and on about all of those different things, and that's going to be like very closely linked to the sociology side. But what I also love to do, and this is primarily what I work with couples around, is going to be the biology side. So I specialize in 2 things: sexual dysfunction and then products, which is basically anything sold at a sex store. So talking first about sexual dysfunction, a lot of times I work with women specifically that are suffering with female sexual dysfunction, or as in the field we like to refer to it as female sexual difficulties. I have a basic overview of the 3 types of female sexual difficulties. That's going to be female orgasmic disorder, sexual arousal interest disorder, and then GPPD, which is pelvic penetration pain disorder. What does any of that mean? Well, I have an overview of what the criteria is for each one of those, but put simply, female orgasmic disorder is going to be the inability to orgasm. Sexual arousal interest disorder, that is going to be what a lot of women call, like, I just have low libido, or I don't have a libido. A lot of times they think they have, SAD is the acronym for it, when in fact they don't. But that's what I talk about. And then GPPD, put simply, that's going to be like pain during penetration or pain during sex. It doesn't just have to be penetrative, but that one, with GPPD specifically, it is going to be with penetration, but it can also include pain with any sort of stimulation on your labia, just any sort of pain on your genitals or with your genitals, and especially with penetration specifically. They used to be called vaginismus and vulvodynia, but they combined those 2 terms in 2013, and so now it's GPPD is the DSM-5 criteria and terminology. But anyways, so what I do is I have lessons that are on my Patreon that you can go and learn about these different disorders. So I have an entire breakdown of like female orgasmic disorder. What is it? And what affects it? What does not mean that you qualify for it? Like, for example, if you're on antidepressants or on anxiety medication that are SSRIs, I'm going to talk about the impact that that's going to have and how sometimes that can be a better explanation than what actual female orgasmic disorder is. Or for women that just have never orgasmed, that is quite common with the women that I work with from religious communities, because there's a lot that they don't know. There's a lot of technique that is not going on. There's a real lack in technique, right? So, for example, if someone were to sit down at a piano and I were to place in front of them a really complex John Schmidt music piece, and I say, okay, play it. Like, maybe you know the notes, like the, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Maybe you know the sharps and the flats. So, like, maybe you do have, like, a basic knowledge. That does not mean that you can all of a sudden play with both hands at the same time, sight reading, and, like, play a masterpiece, all right? And a lot of times that's what we expect of these LDS couples specifically, is that, for one, we've never even allowed them to sit down at a piano. Like, we've never even talked about the notes, about, like, what sexuality is, about any of it. So a lot of times they're going in completely blind. Sometimes, though, they're lucky and they do have some basic knowledge, or they do have a basic understanding of things, or maybe a little bit more than most. But then we're like, oh, no, but you'll just, like, figure it out. Don't even worry about it. Well, as a piano player, you can't just sit down. I'm telling you, like, you can't just sit down at a piano and then all of a sudden you're like, well, because I know the names of the notes, I can just play. Like, that's not how that works. I mean, like, what? No, we would think that that's ridiculous if we just asked someone who's never played piano to, like, sit down and play a piano piece. Like, what? But because there's different techniques, there's different pressure that you need to put on your fingers, there's a certain hand position that you need in order to play the piano correctly. There's pedals that make things louder and softer. There's different things in the music, the crescendo, the decrescendo. There's more to it. On these notes you hold, and on these ones you do fast, and right, like, there's different techniques. There's a lot of knowledge that goes into being able to play something well and to be able to produce this masterpiece that is this beautiful song. Well, you can kind of think about that in the same way that's what I'm doing. I'm the piano teacher. I'm going to teach you literally like the techniques to use, where to put your fingers, how much pressure, where this should be going, how to do this. I'm literally taking people and helping them understand everything about how to play, like how to create something with each other that you can combine together and like make a beautiful melody, okay, of pleasure. So I do it all with my LDS audience in mind, of course, because a lot of my audience is not comfortable researching on their own because they don't want to run into like pornographic content or things that really rub up against their values, that isn't aligned with their values. So it puts them in a tricky position because you have a lot of people that are not willing to look anything up on their own, but then they are also like, well, we don't know what we don't know, and then like, how do we even experiment? Like, I don't know. And then it can be very discouraging because they have a lot of expectations that they put on themselves of like, yeah, being able to sit down and, well, everyone just told me I'd figure it out, that I'd be this great piano player. And then when you're not, you feel bad, you feel broken, you feel like there's something wrong with you. And that's not true at all. And then there's just a lot of taboo about the entire subject in general, and then the more shame and embarrassment that you feel about not knowing something, then you don't really know who to ask, and yeah, it just gets complicated. And then it gets hard too, because if you ask someone, like let's say you have a really close friend or a sister or a brother or something that you're like talking to about it, well, for a lot of them, they only have their own experience as well, and their body is different than yours. So although some things might be really helpful, like advice-wise or techniques or something, but then maybe what happens, and I see this a lot, is they'll be told one thing by their one friend that they like really, really trust, and then they go home and then they try it, and like their bodies or them as a couple, like they don't like that activity or that way of doing things, and then once again, they are so discouraged. This is so disheartening. They're like, great, it's just us. Like, we can't figure this out. Or a lot of times it's usually like the blame is put on one partner in particular. And that's just hard. That's just so, so hard. And so that's why a lot of the couples that I work with are in sex therapy, because they've been dealing with this type of stuff for years, for a lot of them. And this doesn't mean that they don't have kids, okay? As far as like, okay, well, yeah, they've clearly figured it out. They have 4 kids, like they can have sex. Okay, yeah, but the quality of sex that they're having is not great. It is not this pleasurable experience for both parties. A lot of times within the culture I see and that I work with, you have one partner, the woman typically, that's more accommodative, that's just kind of doing this because she feels slightly that this is like her wifely duty in a way. And then you have the man that he believes that like somehow he's entitled to this, or that he's just accepting of the accommodation, but he doesn't feel truly wanted or desired by his spouse. And that really hurts. That hurts a lot, to feel like someone's just accommodating you all the time. Or some of the time, or that you have to beg them to accommodate you. And like, that doesn't feel good. And then there's a lot of resentment that comes from that as well, because she'll be like, well, you're only using me for sex. And he's like, well, I want you to want me. I want this relationship to be what it was when we were dating, when we both wanted each other and we desired each other. And now here we are. And 4 kids later, 15 years, and what's happened? Like, we've never had a good time. This is never, or you're finding out just now that like she's never had a good time, or that he is miserable. Like, this causes a lot of things to come up for couples. And so then they go to a sex therapist. So then their sex therapist is going to help them to determine, how do we get here? What is our current communication style with each other? What is the resentment? What has that done to the relationship? How can we change this? How can we better show up for each other? How can we talk to each other and to be more loving towards each other? How can we grow in our connection with each other? So they're going to help with that, right? Especially on the communication side. They're going to give you a lot of tools to have these conversations. But again, you could still like have someone understand, like, well, this is why it's been frustrating trying to play the piano for 12 years, because you were never taught how to play the piano, and like you've just been kind of doing this begrudgingly, and you are constantly like avoiding practice, and you don't want to do it, but then you feel like you have to because you have this giant piano, and like you feel guilty, so then you do it. But so you see what I'm saying? Like the therapist is gonna like help you to have a good relationship with, like, okay, maybe we can get to a place where we like sitting at the piano. Maybe we can get to a place where like we can have sex with each other again. But just because you're able to like not have an immediate emotional reaction to like sitting at the piano, in my analogy, doesn't mean that all of a sudden you have the skills, right? Like, we're talking the pressure that you're putting on the notes and understanding of the different key signatures and like how this works. That's where I come in. That's why I work with sex therapists. So this is where sex education meets sex therapy. I'm not so concerned with how we got here, because that's the work of your therapist, to understand how you got here, how it's affected you, how you feel about that. That's your therapist, all right? You're going to talk to them about that. I need a little bit of context for sure. This is why I prefer to do my job in conjunction with a sex therapist, because they're able to give me the context for you. So if they're referring their client to me, then I need to know a few things about them. Like, okay, how long have you been going to therapy? What are some of the main issues that you're coming in for? What, if any, traumatic experiences have you had sexually together? I meet with a lot of couples that had very traumatic honeymoon experiences, and that really just set them off on the wrong foot from the start, and that always is upsetting. If there's any sort of pain during penetration, again, that's what I specialize in, so if there's any of that going on, that's 1000% affecting your sex life. Because if this activity hurts you physically, yeah, you're not going to want to do it. And the thing about GPPD specifically is it can get to the point where, because your body is really trying to protect you, it's the same part of your nervous system that's in charge of fight, flight, or freeze. And if every single time you've attempted to have sex, and sex is defined between the two of you as a couple as only penetration, then your body can start to have pain in your genitals, even with simple kissing. So you can just be with your partner and kissing them, and all of a sudden you have this pain in your vulva. And that is so hard to deal with, because that causes a lot of friction between you as a couple. Of course it would, because just imagine, like, he comes home from work, he's trying to say hi to you, you're there in the kitchen, and then you start kissing, and it's just a sweet, come home from work moment. It's not going to lead anywhere. He didn't have any intentions of it leading anywhere. He's just trying to show his affection to you, and all of a sudden you have to like push him away because it's hurting you. Physically, it is literally having a physical reaction, and it hurts you. Well, the rejection from that, and he's gonna feel just terrible. He feels like a monster. He feels like he's everything. He can't do anything right. Like, any sort of physical affection that he shows you literally hurts you. That is devastating. Okay, and then maybe depending on what his coping mechanisms is for that, like, you see how this dynamic can happen? Okay, so you're in therapy, right? And you're working on this. Well, then you come to me, and I am going to help you in this particular scenario. If you're having pain, let's say, you're going to come to me, and I'm going to help you understand where this is coming from. Like, what is going on in your body that is causing this pain? We're going to talk about the muscles. We're going to talk about blood flow. We're going to talk about this unintentional tightening, that this is not something that you are intentionally doing. We're going to talk about the connection between your nervous system and these muscles. We're going to talk about stretches that you can do. And most importantly, with this particular one, we're going to get you set up with a pelvic floor therapist. Now, that saying that can be really nerve-wracking. That, oh, we're going to involve someone else in this? Well, what are they going to do? This is a very heightened topic for these people because this is something that affects them daily. This has affected every part of their relationship. Has a lot of emotion attached to it, right? And if you can't even have your spouse, the person that you love, the one that you committed your life to, touch you, then the thought of a stranger doing so is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So that's another thing that I do. So I would first explain what this is, that there is a name for it, the criteria for it, what's going on in your body. Okay, we're going to get to an understanding on that, right? Then we would do another session about what is a pelvic floor therapist? What is their job? What do they do? We can go through an entire appointment where I take you through what to expect step by step from a pelvic floor therapy appointment. What they're going to do, how to advocate for yourself, how to speak for yourself, of being able to talk about, they can know the limits of what a pelvic floor therapist will actually do, what you can say, how you can collaborate with them, because they are there to help you. They are not there to make this a worse experience. Their whole job is to help lessen your pain. So we're going to talk about the different techniques that they're going to use, and we're going to talk about if you feel comfortable with that or not. Then maybe if you really don't feel comfortable with something, then you would go back to your sex therapist, talk through the anxiety that the thought of this appointment is having. We're all going to work together to get you to a place where you feel confident going to a pelvic floor therapist, that you and your spouse, especially, knowing that your spouse can go in and the pelvic floor therapist can show your spouse these different techniques, the massage techniques, the ways to hold your hips, the ways to do things, that the pelvic floor therapist can show your spouse and have your spouse do it. That can be really empowering and help you feel a lot more comfortable. So we're going to talk about that. That's an option. How to ask the therapist for that, how to have these discussions. All of that is going to be something that I do. I'm going to help educate you on what this is and how it will help you. So then you have a client, they start going to pelvic floor therapy. They go, maybe once, twice a week for a month. They're doing their stretches at home. They're using dilators. They're going to come to me and they're going to have a session all about the different dilators. We're going to talk about the pros and the potential cons to the different kinds. We're going to talk about lube, the different properties of the different types of lube, silicone versus water versus oil-based. We're going to have you try out a few different things. We're going to see how that helps you. And if it doesn't help you, then you can bring that feedback back to me. Okay, I want you to try this technique. I want you to try this type of position. I want you to your husband, I want you to try this type of technique as well. And a lot of times we're taking penetration off of the table during this time. Penetration is not allowed during this time. And so then you have a couple going, well, then what are we supposed to do? What do you mean? That is sex. Sex is penetration, which the correct term for that is coitus, and sex is so much more than just coitus, all right? It's so much more than penis and vagina, all right? And only 18% of women orgasm vaginally. 18%, okay? Not super high. Whereas, on average, about 92% of men orgasm through vaginal penetration. Okay? So, real disconnect there in the stats. So, if that's true, if only 18%, which it is, has been proven time and time again through a lot of research, well, there's a lot of different things that you can do to experience pleasure together. Again, you're going to come to me and I'm going to teach you about blood flow. I'm going to teach you about the difference between blood flow in male and female anatomy and why that matters, and simple techniques that you can do to help. Once we know what we're working with, then we can start to actually make some music. because we're using it properly, right? Like we have the correct knowledge about our own bodies and about our partner's body, so we can start to work with that. And let's say that I am giving you these techniques and I want you to go try this, but you're like, I feel really uncomfortable with that. I don't know. I don't know about all this. Okay, great. You're going to go talk to your therapist about why you're feeling like unsure or nervous, or you're feeling embarrassed or maybe discouraged, like all of your feelings that you're having around learning this new information. You're going to go talk to your therapist about that. A lot of times when I do my lesson about blood flow and arousal and female arousal versus male arousal, there tends to be an uptick in feelings of injustice, especially for the women, because they're like, are you kidding me? I've thought I was broken this whole time, and you're telling me that we just were doing it based off of his anatomy instead of mine, and like now that we know mine, like that's just so unfair. Why do we as women not know this? Like the outrage that is felt, and like it's felt by men as well, because they're like, if I would have known this, I would have done it from the start that way. And so there's a lot of like injustice and feelings around that. Then you can go and process those with your therapist if that is like really upsetting you. Or maybe like there's just so many different ways in which we can work together. And what's great about having a sex educator with a sex therapist is because you're quite time poor as a sex therapist, right? A lot of what they're doing is they need you to be speaking, and then they're helping giving you tools of like communication or ways to think about things, behavioral theory, all sorts of stuff. Whereas for me, I'm the one teaching. So I'm giving you information, and then you take that information, you go and you process it in your sessions with your therapist of how you felt about that, what that means for you as a couple. Okay, maybe you try a few of the techniques and it just like changes your life. It's like unbelievable. All of a sudden, for the first time in like 6 years since being married, you don't have any pain because you have been going to pelvic floor therapy. You have the correct lube that works for both of you. You've been using these techniques that I've been teaching you about, and you're having the best sex of your life. And you're like, honestly, kind of bitter that you've had to wait 6 years for this. Sometimes that happens, that like now you have to process all of the stuff that you missed out on, all of the barriers that were in your way all that time. Like you kind of have to grieve that happened. So that you can process with your therapist. That is what they're there for, is they can really spend that time with you. Whereas I don't have time to do that. That's not what my job is. I'm a teacher. I'm here to teach you, to give you information. And then you go home, you do your homework, you practice, and then we're going to see how it went. And I'm going to get feedback from you. And I mean, I've taught lessons on anything and everything. Just to give you like an idea of the range. A lot of it we start off with, because of the clientele that I work with, a lot is about female sexual pleasure, male sexual pleasure, arousal, blood flow, pain. Okay, once we've got like the basics out of the way, then we get into like, well, we kind of want to explore different things. Okay, well, I've taught lessons on sexting, because you would think like, oh, that's pretty simple, I'll just like send a text. Well, guess what? There's 4 different types of sexting. There's 4 different types of like ways to communicate like sexy, dirty talk. And I have made them into an entire lesson of like, that way I'm able to give you this information of, this is one way to like have this interaction. Here's another way to do it. Here's another one. And this one plays more with power dynamics. This one is working more with this like style of communication. So I give you all this information, and then you two are able to go and you're able to talk about it and be like, okay, well, what did you like, and what sounds appealing to you? Okay. And then they're like, okay, well, now we've determined like what type we want and what we're gonna do, but I need ideas. I don't even know what kind of text do I send. Okay, let me help you out. That's another thing. Like, I can be as specific as you want. I mean, I have given people, say this, do this, versus here's some ideas, here's some things. It just depends on the couple, like how much hand-holding they want through the process. I mean, I've taught lessons on the difference between all the different things you can use to like spank someone. So like crops, floggers, the whips, sticks, the different materials, where to spank, because you take everything from I take everything from a safety perspective of like, we don't want to be hurting our partner, we want this to feel good. So where are the nerve endings, and where are the muscle, and where is the bone, and like, why is this pleasurable, where are the pleasure zones? All of that is going to come into play of like, this is why this feels good, this is why you might want to try it like this. And then you take that and then you go home and you go from there. And this is where it really links with products. So anything sold in a sex store really is, like, I could tell you anything about anything. I have spreadsheets on spreadsheets on spreadsheets of hundreds. We're talking hundreds on hundreds. Like, I have one spreadsheet in particular of my female vibrators. It's over 500 vibrators. And like the differences between all of them, all the different features, where they're manufactured, all of the different functions that they have. I mean, it's ridiculous how much I am obsessed with this, because to me it's just so fascinating. And I know people don't get it in the same way that I will never understand like how dentists get excited about teeth, or like a computer programmer is like so fascinated with like code or building a website, or someone who like studies bugs, I don't even know what that, like a zoologist or something, cannot relate. Okay, there's not a single thing about that fascinates me. Like, you won't catch me at a zoo or at an aquarium. I don't care. I don't like it. I don't really love the animals, okay? In nature, sure, fine, whatever. But, like, I don't want to pet your dog, okay? You know what? That may make me sound like a freaking weirdo to you, but hey, that's my preference. But it also may sound like I may sound like a weirdo to you, saying, like, you want to know what fascinates me? Is the different vibrations, and, like, using my vibrometer to measure the vibration between vibrators and seeing, like, how they differ. Yeah, maybe that's boring to you. Well, guess what? God made us all differently for a reason. Someone had to do this. Someone had to be fascinated in it. And luckily for you, I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So not only do I find it fascinating, but I also love being able to explain these things in a way that make it less taboo, make it easier to understand, and that align with the faith values that I hold, that are the most important things to me. So I love helping people understand their options so that they can use their agency more wisely. And I love being able to take someone from a really high, anxious state of like being terrified at the thought of like being in a sex store, to understanding what your options are, how they advertise versus what they actually do, and allowing you to see like what function are you wanting from this? Like, how are you wanting this to help increase your pleasure, to also help you to connect better? How is this going to be a tool in your toolbox that can help you? In the same way that like pedals on the piano, they can help you make things louder or make things softer, or to prolong a note. A vibrator can do that too, okay? It can make things bigger and have a bigger crescendo. It can help things go on for longer. It can do all sorts of things. It's just a tool for you, and maybe some people feel completely uncomfortable with that. They don't want that. That's fine too. Then we'll work with you on like different things that is more appealing to you. Maybe you're just really interested in having like a sex game, a board game or something, you know, and well, there's like a freaking million options. So you go to the store and you're like, I don't know. Okay, well, I can help you. Well, in this game, it has these types of elements to it. In this one, it has this. In this one, it has this. This one is made for people who have multiple partners, so maybe that one might not be for you. This one has pictures and drawings that are quite explicit in it, so you need to see if that's something that you feel comfortable with before spending $40. that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you understand, to educate you on your options and how you can use these options, these products, these different things, this knowledge about your body to then grow in connection with someone else. And then we have the young single adult side, and that is a bit different. I mean, it's same, but different because we're not working with a couple in that case. Instead, I'm helping YSAs with a lot of preventative things because I work with couples, right? Like that's what I do. I work primarily with couples, and I work with the couples that are in sex therapy and that have had years of issues or months of issues or sometimes decades of issues. And what I'm doing with the young single adults is I'm trying to help prevent a lot of what I see in my office. And the ways in which we can prevent a lot of those things is by, one, increasing our personal convictions around sexuality and how we are going to use our sexuality and how we are not going to use our sexuality. That we're not going to use it as this commodity that can manipulate someone else or be manipulated. Okay, we are going to grow our self-confidence. We're also going to lower our anxieties around the natural, normal, developmental milestones that we're going to be having as adults when it comes to feelings of eroticism, feelings of desire, like how to be at greater peace with our sexuality and have better understanding of like what is normal and what is going to be a more abnormal behavior or compulsion, and how to, again, have more integrity around how we use our sexuality, because our sexuality is not just limited to another person. This is the power that we have in us that drives us towards creation. And that is not only procreation, okay, that seems to be the only way that in which we relate to it. And then we're like, well, you can only procreate with someone else, so like then there's nothing that you can do ahead of time. Okay, that is one part of sexuality. But this power of creation that is in all of us, it drives us towards the creation of art, of beauty, of connection, of intimacy. Intimacy, by definition, is deep friendship. So with YSAs, I'm going to be working with them and teaching them about how to not only be able to create a more vulnerable part of themselves to be able to have deeper friendships, more intimate relationships that are platonic, that are purely friendship based, that within dating, to be able to better be seen and see others so that you can actually choose a healthy relationship rather than coming into a relationship with all of this anxiety about, well, I need this other person to validate who I am as a person and give my sexuality validation, like legitimize it in some way. That for women, a lot of times they're coming into it and it's like, well, I need him to tell me I'm beautiful and that I'm perfect and that and that my body's okay and that it is all right the weight that I'm at and that I am enough, and so she's seeking this from him, and that's a lot to put on a person. And then for men, a lot of times they are seeking this validation of I am manly enough, that I'm good enough, that I am, they feel like they have to perform in a lot of ways, that they need to be this person that can validate her, rather than she can stand there in front of you as a confident person saying, I don't need you to tell me that I'm beautiful. I know I am. I appreciate the sentiment. I appreciate those words and the kindness and like you saying those things. But what I'm seeking with you is partnership. What I want is not just for you to stand in front of me and like validate me and like be this caretaker to me. And a lot of times we do that both ways, okay? Both men and women, they do it to each other where they just want this caretaker. Where instead we need to be able to stand in front of each other as full individuals and know our worth and be able to advocate for our desires and be able to express our opinions and be able to stand in the face of your partner when they do not validate you. when they are not just going to like boost your ego for you. Like, you are not designed to just stand there and just give each other exactly what you need. No, you want to be desired. You want them, not need them. Because as Dr. Jennifer Finlayson Fife says, when you need someone, you cannot choose them. We need to be in a place where we can actually desire someone. We can want to build something, that we can be collaborative, that you can stand in the face of rejection from someone. So many people, especially YSAs, they are so afraid to put themselves out there, or maybe they are dating or something, but they don't want to give too much away. They don't want to show their cards, right? Like, it's just this giant game, and it's miserable for everyone because you're both refusing to be vulnerable. You're both refusing to be intimate. And then a lot of times you're waiting for the other person to make themselves vulnerable, when that's not true friendship. That's also, it takes a lot of confidence to be able to stand in front of someone and say, hey, look, I feel this way about you, and I feel like I've been, giving you a lot of signals. I've been doing things for you. Like, I'm going out of my way to do this stuff. Like, how do you feel about me? And then if you're faced with rejection in that moment, which happens, boy, does that happen, where it's like, actually, no, I just want to be friends. Well, it's a lot better to be able to have that conversation 3 weeks in than 2 years in to a friendship, okay? Because then you start to see all of the ways in which you've been taken advantage of if you're the one being vulnerable. A lot of times, oh my gosh, I see this all the time with my YSA women, where, and not just the women, the men do this too, okay? The men experience this as well, but we'll talk about both sides. But with women, more often, I see them just being these perfect little girlfriends, right? Like, they will make food for them, and they'll have them over, and they'll do these things, and they're just like, they're so good at giving, and they're so good at being this perfect hostess, and they're so nice, and of course that feels nice, right? Like, if you're the receiver of that, like, this is pretty cush, this is pretty nice, and her motivation for doing this is she likes him. She likes this guy. And so she's willing to go out of her way to like stay up later and, not go to sleep on time when she really should for her own health. But she wants to do all these things for him. But the whole time she like absolutely refuses to have the conversation. And then you a lot of times have the guy in this scenario that, well, this is pretty nice. And he may know that he actually doesn't feel that way about her. Like, he doesn't want her sexually, but it's pretty nice to be taken care of. And so he'll just kind of like let it go on. And he'll kind of play into it a little bit. Maybe he'll flirt a little bit. Maybe he'll keep her on the string. He'll keep her along. And then one day if she is vulnerable and says, hey, what are we? Like, I want to be more. That is devastating to her when like, oh, no, I just want to be friends conversation happens, because it's like, well, you were taking advantage of me liking you. Like, and it takes a lot for someone to be honest about that, about when they are taking advantage, and women do this too, okay? This is not just men taking advantage of women. We do it to each other. We are such culprits of this. And this is why I love talking to YSAs. It's because you stop it. Like, stop doing this to each other. This guy likes you, but you just love the way in which he feeds your ego. You love the way in which he gives you attention, and like, yeah, he's like kind of okay, but like, he's kind of nice, and like, I like his company, and I don't want to be lonely, but that's not kind. That is not a kind thing to do to another person. If you know that the reason they are doing this is because they are sexually attracted to you, and you are taking advantage of that, that is not modest behavior, okay? That's what actual modesty is. It has nothing to do with bodies. It has everything to do with protecting your own dignity and the dignity of others. And that right there, that's the problem that a lot of like young single adults get into. Or they'll just jump into like being physically intimate with each other without actually having emotional intimacy that matches that first. And that's a very common thing. And it's so understandable. Like, I'm not here to shame anybody. I'm here to help you understand why we do this. And not only what it does for us, but what it also doesn't do for you. Because when you're, an hour into a first date and you start making out, well, someone with true confidence in themselves, like genuine confidence, worth, they know what they want, they have desires, they go after them, they're probably most likely not going to be down to just make out after an hour of knowing someone, because they understand that I'm not just here to feed your ego. I'm not just here for some like temporary moment of pleasure for you to have, or for maybe us both to have. But if you're actually seeking deep connection with people, you're going to be able to stand up for that and say, you don't even know who I am. Like, you don't see me. I could be anyone. I could be anyone. And the thing is, I'm not just anyone. I am someone with worth and with value. And if I'm going to express some sort of physical intimacy with someone, if I'm going to increase my physical intimacy, I want it to match my emotional intimacy that I have with you, because you deserve that. You deserve that respect, and I deserve that respect. And a lot of times, okay, let's be completely honest, we're going to get into this conversation, is when you do not have confidence in yourself, and I'm especially talking to women right now, women in Utah, okay? When you do not have confidence in yourself, when you have low self-esteem, when you only feel your worth comes from a man telling you that you have it, you are setting yourself up to be a victim of sexual violence. That is a fact. That is absolutely a fact. If you have never once thought about, what are my boundaries? What am I okay with? What am I not okay with? Why am I okay with those things? And why wouldn't I be all right with these other things? Can I express those things to another person? If you cannot look someone in the eyes and tell them what you want them to do and what you're not okay with them doing, you shouldn't be doing it, okay? You need to be able to verbalize those things. You need to be able to be on the same page before you start making out with someone, because far too often I work with women, with YSAs specifically, who take it too far. And I'm not saying like, oh, they have sex. No, I'm saying they were sexually assaulted, okay? And a lot of times they don't even realize that, or they do in the moment, but then they don't know what to do. They don't know how to advocate for themselves. They don't know how to say what to stop. Then it causes so much confusion, because he's the first counselor in the bishopric of their YSA board. And like, I thought he was a good guy. And then he thinks he is a great guy. And then there's confusion on his end as well, because he's like, well, she didn't give any indication that it wasn't okay. But like, these are the problems I am here to help avoid. All right. I am here to help these YSAs from avoiding getting in these situations, because they are devastating for both people. And it's just so hard when like your worth is tied up into your sexual appeal and whether or not someone wants it. That is not where our worth should be coming from. We need to be able to embrace our sexuality, our creative abilities. We need to be able to grow that part of ourselves, go after our passions, our desires, do things that fill our soul with joy, that we can speak up and say what we like and what we don't like, so that when you're with someone else, especially when you're with someone that you're dating, you can start to see, do they respect what I have to say? Do they respect that I have desires just the same as they do? And if they can't even respect your desire to go out and, I don't know, take some pottery class that you've always wanted to take, if they think that that's dumb or that's stupid, but it's a desire that you have, how much do you think they're going to respect your desire in the bedroom? Okay, if they don't care about your experience on a date, if you're having a good, pleasurable time, if you're enjoying yourself, if they don't really care, like, truly about your experience, how do you ever think they're going to care in a bedroom? They're not. Like, you're not. If you don't care about someone else's experience, like, these things relate to each other. And you need to be able to have confidence in yourself. And you also need to be able to make decisions without thinking like, well, is this what I'm allowed to do or not allowed to do? You need to be able to move on from that frame of thinking into a self-authoring phase. You need to be able to have integrity and communicate with God about what you're going to do with your life and how you're going to live it and how you're going to live these values that you have. Because it's not always going to fit within the cultural mold. You know, especially I talk a lot with divorced young single adults that are like still in their early 20s and they're divorced, and you went from being completely sexually active to not sexually active, having conversations about that, having lessons about what that looks like, how that it can impact you, and how to have sexual integrity around dating again. That's a big one. Having frank conversations about masturbation, about pornography. All of these things are so helpful to have before you get married, before you get in a relationship, so that we can avoid having couples that are just messed up, to be honest, that they're having a hard time. Because not only do they not know how to play piano, but they thought that the other person would just be able to, like, you know, play songs all the time and like provide them everything that they wanted and everything. Like, no, this is not reality. That's not what real human beings are like. Okay? And when we have these unmet expectations, that can be quite disappointing. So instead, I'm here to help grow the confidence of what is real. What is tangible? What spiritual gifts do you have? What does your sexuality even mean? How can you embrace that as a single adult who's choosing to follow the law of chastity? You know, it's not just not thinking about sexuality, and it's also not doing whatever the heck you want. Like, we're going to talk about what does that look like in real life. That's what I mostly talk to young single adults about. And then also, giving lessons about arousal and all that stuff to young single adults. Great information. Do you know how much better that's going to set them up for when they do get married? It's amazing. Are we going to go over like specific techniques? No, we're not going to do that. Like maybe with engaged couples, depends. But there is still a lot that you need to be able to know before you're able to like actually be in a vulnerable, intimate, healthy relationship. And there's things and skills that you need to practice ahead of time that we're not talking about. And I see the dysfunction that comes when you don't. So I'm here to help with that. So I help everyone, the singles, the youth, like helping with sexual shame, helping adult leaders to understand, again, what is developmentally normal, how to react to certain behaviors, ways to teach it. I have my LDS parenting series where I did 10 episodes, and it's all structured through values. So, like, it's designed to listen to episode 2 first, setting up how to talk about sexuality through a value system. And what is a value? What are the criteria for something to actually be a value? News alert, the first criteria for something to actually be a value is it needs to be chosen freely. That is so huge in the beliefs that I hold as a Latter-day Saint and what I believe about agency and how important it is. So nothing that I ever teach is going to be contrary to like doctrine. It might be contrary to culture, absolutely. But I'm helping people to increase their sexual integrity, their understanding of how things actually work, understanding of how their bodies actually work, how relationships, arousal, all of that stuff, how confidence, how to think about these things and actually apply that teaching in your life. So that's what I do as a sex educator. And if you are interested in booking a private session with me, you absolutely can. Just go to my link tree. It's the link in my Instagram bio. It's also my Patreon as well. So if you want my lessons, if you're like, oh, I want to learn about sexual dysfunction or about how the genitals work or arousal or the science of orgasm, all of that is already made. It's on my Patreon and you can buy my full library, and I will continue adding to that this entire year. So if you purchase it once, you'll continue to get the new videos as I upload them. And then I also have like my product videos on there as well. If you want me to come and speak to your Relief Society or your ward or your youth, or you want me to do a ladies' night or a product party, bachelorette party, I teach chair dancing. I do a lot of different things. It's all on my link tree. I have forms that you can fill out for all of it. Or if you want to meet with me as a couple or as an individual for a private session, then hit me up. That's what I'm here for. I am an educator, so let me educate you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. And I will catch you next episode with my weekly anonymous questions. So submit your Q&A if you have something to say. Okay, bye.